All right. So, obviously, not a big surprise as to what the top story is this week. You know, I don't think that you've ever heard the name of an FBI director dropped so many times in a 5-6 day span. So obviously,
maybe whenever he was actually doing all the stuff in the election,
right? yeah.
You heard his name a few times,
right? But obviously, James Comey's firing is the top story. I know you've got a timeline to read us, and that's awesome. Before we get into the timeline of James Comey, let's just real quick break down the story. James Comey, because I don't think that the act of firing James Comey should be the controversial part of this story.
It's the timing.
It is absolutely the timing. Can Trump do it? Yes.
Well, maybe 50% of the timing. I think that they probably would have thrown Trump under the bus regardless of what time he did it.
Yes, but
because that's just kind of the way we're living right now. But the timing for Republicans is the issue where Republicans kind of have with it.
Absolutely. And not only, like, I agree with you because the opposition is always going to be the opposition. I get it. Democrats
#resist.
Right. Democrats were going to go after this no matter what. But here's the thing. Had it not been this week and a couple days ago, after he 2 weeks after he had testified and said that the Trump campaign was under investigation for ties or looking at the possibility of ties with Russian collusion, right? That's the story. That makes it look bad. It's 2 weeks after that, and then what makes it look worse is that the story from the White House, at least in the first 24 hours, was it's because of the handling of the email investigation. Well, does anybody really believe that Trump fired him for being too mean to Hillary Clinton? I don't think so. So, that's where the story comes from. And obviously there is a lot to dive into when it comes to the history of James Comey and how it got to this point. Fair?
Right. Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, so let's get into the actual timeline here. So, September 4th, 2013, Comey is sworn into office as the 7th director of the FBI. He's nominated for the post by President Barack Obama and confirmed by the Senate. Now, fast forward 3 years, July 5th, 2016, he holds a news conference to announce that no reasonable prosecutor would bring criminal charges against Hillary Clinton, the Democratic presidential candidate, obviously, over her email practices as Secretary of State. Mm-hmm. But she criticizes Clinton and her staff for being extremely careless in the handling of classified material. And this is, now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, all right, Comey's fine. I think that, I'd rather him be there because he pissed off Republicans, he pissed off Democrats and all that.
That's kind of my opinion on it, too, is...
Yeah. Not at this point, though. I was pissed because I was like, bullshit.
When?
They say extremely careless. Whenever he came out was like, no reasonable prosecutor would bring her up on charges.
Yeah.
Yes, they would.
Yeah,
there is a prosecutor out there that would bring her up on charges.
Absolutely.
And that was bullshit.
Yeah, and
he was like, this is why she messed up. This is why she messed up. This is what they did.
And I will say,
but she's fine.
And I will say that Democrats and Republicans alike should be able to admit that some of the ways that Comey handled the situation, or some of the ways that, or some of the conclusions that Comey drew on certain things weren't the correct, or at least the satisfying conclusion and or way that you would handle that. And I get that. And do I think that there was a reason for him to be fired? Yes, I do.
Yeah.
But I don't think that is necessarily why this whole thing blew up. I would think that most Democrats and Republicans would agree that James Comey should have been fired. It's just, I don't know. I mean, there has to be a plausible reasoning behind it, right? So, Anyway, let's keep going with that.
So, then the same day, obviously, Donald Trump goes to his, I'm assuming his Twitter handle. It doesn't say it explicitly, but I'm sure it was.
Fake news.
He calls the FBI's decision not to bring criminal charges against Clinton the greatest example yet that the system is rigged.
He says in Bernie voice.
So, obviously, I'm assuming he did that over Twitter. So Comey vigorously denies, 2 days later, he vigorously denies the decision not to prosecute Clinton over her use of a private email server as Secretary of State. Under an onslaught of Republican criticism, Comey says that to charge Clinton would have been unwarranted, don't believe it, and mere celebrity hunting, don't believe it. But that's fine. That was his reasoning.
Right, which, I mean, if you're looking for a reason for him to be fired, I think
that would be
drawing the wrong conclusion there is at least one reason. I'm sure that we'll find another reason, but I think that's one reason. And
that's why Republicans would want to
that
get
being
rid of
said,
him.
like, I'm not trying to disparage James Comey. I do think that James Comey, I don't think he's a bad guy. I don't know if he was the best FBI director, but I don't think that should discredit who he is or what what he's done or what he's capable of doing. I just don't know. I think a big part of the problem with James Comey is that, as we'll see as this timeline continues, James Comey doesn't mind the limelight, and that's very uncharacteristic of.
I'll agree with that part.
Directors of intelligence agencies. Typically, you don't know their names, and that's because they don't want you to. And I don't know that Comey. I don't know that Comey shared that opinion, and so for that reason, I think that there were reasons for him to not be in that position, but I'm not trying to damn his character. So when I take
and I'm not either. I disagree with what he did, and I think, but again, we've talked about this with each other before, where I'm convinced that he thought he was doing the right thing. Doesn't mean I think he did the right thing.
Right.
But I think he really, truly said, like, I tried to do what was right at every corner.
Right.
I just think he sucked at his job.
Yeah. kind of that George W. Bush effect, right? Like, he had good intentions,
he means well,
but he did bad stuff. Like, he did the wrong thing. Maybe not malicious bad, but anyway.
Right. So, October 28th, 2016, obviously. Days before the election, Comey informs Congress by letter that he has reopened the investigation into Clinton's email practices based on new evidence, citing the discovery of emails on a laptop used by a top Clinton aide, which obviously what was going on there was they were investigating. They had finished the investigation with Clinton, and then they were, in a separate investigation, they were looking into Anthony Weiner and his weirdo 14-year-old girl bullshit where he was, being a big pedo over there, flashing his wiener again, Carlos Danger.
Like, why? If you have that last name, like, you already have that last name, and you got to show it to everybody? Like, everybody?
Well, they said that he never met up with any of these women, and obviously the 14-year-old girl one is super weird. That's way beyond, just normal internet stuff. But
that's like, that's To Catch a Predator status.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, why don't you sit down, Anthony? We got some cookies.
It's okay. Huma Abedin is working through their relationship. Bullshit. Call him bullshit on that.
Right.
But
just like Melania is.
Yeah, but Huma Abedin is obviously a top Clinton aide. That is Anthony Weiner is her husband. So they're investigating Anthony Weiner for his weird Carlos Danger shit. And they say, "Oh, we found some of these emails that we found in the Clinton investigation."
Carlos
Danger.
That's awesome. That's Archer status.
It really is the danger zone. So basically, that's kind of what happens. And so he says, "Hey, we're going to take a look at them. There might be new emails, there might not. So we're going to take a look at it." Now Trump reacts to the FBI's decision the same day to investigate new messages, saying at a campaign rally that he has great respect for the FBI for righting this wrong. So, obviously, bullshit. He's on his side, so he's all about it. And there was some controversy about it because they were saying it took Comey 9 days to come out and say that there were no conclusions. November 6th, he came back out and said, nothing has changed. Mm-hmm. We still think she isn't guilty. And there was a lot of criticism from the left at that point because they were saying that you can scan these emails. There's technology where you can scan all the new ones on this file and you could figure this out in a day.
Right.
Like, it doesn't have to take up until the very end of the election.
Right.
Now,
which
then some conservatives were pissed off because he came out like literally 2 days before the election and was like, "No, it's fine. She's awesome." And
right.
like,
That's probably a fair argument, though. I mean, based on technology and
everyone has a. Yeah,
you know,
it is. It is a fair argument.
I mean, the fact of the matter is that the entire world just got hacked by crazy virus and their computers taken for ransom. So if that technology
We're going to have to talk about that one because we talked about that during the Vault 7 coverage.
Right.
And this is exactly where that came from. That's a whole other issue, all about how governments are hoarding.
We can get into that.
Oh, man.
We can get into that next
fun.
week. All I'll tell you,
Not
children, is when you find a flash drive on a parking lot, leave it there. Just leave it there because you never know what's on it, and you might think you're going to get somebody's nudie pics, you pervert, but you're not. You're going to get the worldwide virus. Thanks a lot, you pervert on a parking lot.
Way to go.
So anyway.
So then Trump obviously
it's the best
criticizes
segue in the history of this show.
Anyway. So then November 6th, Trump criticizes Comey's second letter to Congress, saying that it's a rigged system again, and he pronounces her as guilty because that's his job, apparently.
Right.
2 days later, November 8th, Donald Trump is elected president. I am drunk out of my mind, just in disbelief. And Brandon is digging a hole, going, "Save me, save me!"
I actually will say, here's what's crazy, and I think I've said it on the show before, but my election night was very different than yours. You were up partying and going nuts because of what the impossible was happening, and I fell asleep at some point during the night and thinking like at the time they were really close on the map. Like it was early in the night. I fell asleep. I woke up at like 2 a.m. and was like, what am I looking at? Like, am I waking up? This isn't what was supposed to happen. I was so confident leading up to this.
It's real. Not my president.
Right. You just see it like Ron Paul there. It's happening! Laser lights shooting out from over my head. I had no idea. Like, I was not expecting to wake up to that. So I wasn't in this state of depression. I was in the state of like, am I actually awake? Because this isn't how I saw this going.
I just kept drinking, and I remember first it was Florida, and then obviously we've covered this before, but man, that was just that was an incredible moment for me. I was super drunk, couldn't remember much of it, and then the next day I actually went to work, which sucked, but somehow I did it. So, November 12th, during a telephone call with donors, Clinton blames Comey for her defeat by Trump. Clinton said her campaign was on track to win the election until Comey sent the letter to Congress.
And I would say she has half of an argument there. Like, the fact
she's got a quarter of an argument. There's quite a few other things that she did wrong that didn't.
I would agree with you.
I wouldn't say that sealed the deal.
No.
But it very well could have. I don't know. There's no way to know.
No, there's no way to know. But I definitely think it played a part amongst those other things. The fact that there was an email scandal at all, and let's not kid ourselves and act like Hillary Clinton is a likable politician. She is not, but I do think that when she
I don't think he is either.
That the timing of Comey's statement cost her the election. I don't know that it actually cost her, but I know it made it way closer than it would have been without it. I mean, dude,
I'll say this. Like, I was the one who kept saying to you, Trump could probably win. Trump could probably win. Then the pussy grabbing happened and everything else, and I remember just kind of being like, she's gonna win.
Yeah.
And I was not happy. And I remember it was around lunchtime at work, and a coworker of mine was everyone else was at lunch, and she goes, "Oh my God, Comey just opened up the investigation on Clinton again." And I really did feel it around in the office and everywhere else that everyone was like, "Oh my God, really? What?" And like there was this new energy that infused. So it very well could have swayed.
That was the moment. That was the moment that I got nervous. Like the moment that came, that statement came out.
Well, you didn't make any show of it.
I was but in my head I was very much like, this is bad. This is really close to the election. And then I remember thinking when he corrects it in a week that. That's not good enough. Like, we're now a weekend away. Like, that's not good enough. You need to come out and make some grand-ass statement because that really hurt. So, do I think that I can't know.
It was the Russians.
I can't know that was the moment that happened. But I know that was the moment.
It was a palpable moment. I did feel it.
It was the moment where
shift.
it was a moment where I went from being utterly over the top confident that you were stupid for even picking anyone other than Hillary Clinton, because if you remember, I shit on the Bernie people too, because I don't share Bernie Sanders' vision. First of all,
I was way more upset about the Bernie thing than if Trump would have lost.
But
I just didn't want Hillary to win. I really wanted Bernie
but the
to
entire
win.
time,
I kept being mad at you. I was like, no, Bernie's cool.
But the entire time, I never supported Hillary Clinton, and I never liked Hillary Clinton. But because the writing was on the wall, and because because it was obvious that she had the superdelegates and Bernie didn't have a chance, I laughed at you for Bernie too, and I laughed about Trump. And then Comey came out 6 days before the election, and I was like, oh shit.
Well, if the Podesta emails would have come out a month earlier or so, that didn't make any sense to me. I knew that I got that they dropped it in order to put a damper on the DNC, and that was another one on the long list of things that CNN did that turned me off to CNN, because I remember they were literally getting booed the first day, and after their coverage, they were like, "I've never seen such unity."
I do remember.
Joke.
I do remember that.
Shut up, CNN.
I was like, "Where was that? The part where Sarah Silverman talked, or what?"
You're being ridiculous.
But I mean,
anyway,
that's neither here nor there. Thank God we didn't get Hillary Clinton, because we would have had a presidency covered in scandal. So
I know, right? Shoot, lock her up. Then Tim Kaine would have been there. No. Anyway, so going back to this timeline, Donald Trump invites Comey to the White House. He's at a reception there to thank law enforcement officers. He gives him a handshake and a partial hug. So it looked like they squashed their beef. Let's see here. So then March 8th, he alludes to that he's basically planning on staying all 10 years. He said, "You're stuck with me for another 6.5 years." No, we weren't. March 20th.
No,
he testifies to Congress that the FBI
say something about Russia. You won't be around.
He testifies. Let's see. The FBI is investigating possible links between Trump associates and Russian officials since July, the same month that he held an unusual news conference to discuss the investigation into Clinton. And that's kind of where it goes back to you, where you were saying this guy likes the spotlight. It was unusual.
Right.
It wasn't normal. I don't quite. So that's another mark on yeah, maybe this guy should go.
And while we're on that point, real quick, if he liked the spotlight as the FBI director, think of how much he's going to like the spotlight now that he has an enemy.
Well, Trump has that problem where he likes to make enemies with everyone who's important in government.
Right.
So
we'll
see if it works out for him.
He's already said. I mean, they've already said that he's not going to say anything this week. It may be next week or 2 weeks from now, but Comey is going to come out.
He was invited by Congress, or he was invited by the Senate, I think.
Which he declined because the invitation was for...
Did he really?
Well, the invitation was for a closed-door meeting, and he said, no. If I go into a closed-door meeting, every Republican in there is going to find something that they think exonerates Donald Trump, and they're going to twist it, and they're going to run with that. And on the flip side, Democrats are going to pick every word to find something that condemns Donald Trump, and they're going to twist it, and they're going to run with it. So I will come out and talk, but I'm going to talk in a public setting. And I think that's best for all of us, kind of.
Right. So now it says, same day, March 20th, Comey testifies at the same hearing that the FBI and the Justice Department have no information to substantiate Trump's unsubstantiated claim on Twitter that former President Barack Obama wiretapped him. We know that. We've debunked that 100 fucking times.
Right.
So no, didn't happen. Sorry, folks.
Fake news.
May 2nd, 2000. It is fake news. 2017. Clinton again lays part of the blame on losing the election to Comey's October 28th letter. Quoted, if the election were on October 27th, I would have been your president, she tells a women's luncheon in New York. Very possible. Again, we will never know.
You're right.
Moot point.
Even and to I did my little I gave my advice to Hillary Clinton last week, and I'm gonna jump on top of that for a second. Don't say that. That makes
Shut the fuck up.
It makes you sound just as cocky as you sound like the same person people hated 4 months ago. Stop doing that. Like, don't be that Hillary. Sorry, just don't. And maybe that's just Hillary, and she is just that dislikable.
She just is not a likable person.
Right. It's just dude, why would you say that way? You could have found a way better way to say that. So anyway, go ahead.
May 3rd, 2017, testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee, Comey insists that he was consistent in handling of the separate investigations into Clinton and Trump. Comey also said it made him feel mildly nauseous to think his actions in October might have influenced the election outcome. But he told senators, quoting, "I can't consider for a second whose political futures will be affected in this way or that way. We have to ask ourselves what is the right thing to do and then do it." So I do believe that he thought he was doing the right thing. It just seems like for a guy who wants to do the right thing every time, he's consistently doing the wrong thing.
I mean,
there's a lot of points in this timeline.
It's debatable. I think the nice thing about our conversation about it is that we can recognize that. Well, here's the thing. Let's talk first about the simple fact that when he came out and he exonerated Hillary Clinton initially, Republicans were pissed and Democrats were like, "No, we'll turn the other way. That's fine. It suits us still. We're not going to say anything about it." And then when he came out and reopened the investigation, or at least stated it before the election, Democrats are pissed. Republicans are like, "Well, he's doing his job. It's about damn time." And then 6 days later, Republicans are pissed and Democrats are happy. And it's just both sides are unbelievably hypocritical. But I do think that it's fair to hold two thoughts at the same time. And I think the two thoughts in this instance are, at least when it comes to his firing, is should he have been? Yes. Is it really shady looking at this point? Yes. And you can hold both of those thoughts simultaneously.
Right. So this is the last thing that he did. May 9th, 2017. Comey sends Congress a letter correcting his prior sworn testimony regarding emails handled by longtime Clinton associate Huma Abedin. Comey had told Congress that Abedin had sent, quote, hundreds of thousands of emails to her husband's laptop, including some with classified information. The two-page follow-up letter on May 9th said that, in fact, only a, quote, small number of the thousands of emails found on the laptop had been forwarded there, while most had simply been backed up from electronic devices. So, literally the last thing that he does is come out and say, hey, remember that sworn testimony? Yeah, I was wrong. That wasn't true. And if you're the head of the FBI, you should probably have that.
And what's interesting is Democrats probably... See, the thing is that on the same day, May 9th, later that day, Trump abruptly fires Comey. It says it is essential that we find new leadership for the FBI that restores public trust and confidence in its vital law enforcement mission. The thing that's funny about the first part of May 9th, when Comey comes out and says, oh, hey, remember the whole Huma Abedin thing? I was wrong. Democrats would have been pissed about that if they were given enough time. They weren't. He fired him, and then they were pissed about that. But if you put yourself in this weird alternate universe where Trump doesn't fire him, Democrats still were going to get pissed on Monday, or Tuesday.
And then you could have waited and had a million awesome Chucky Schumer sound bites,
right?
With his weird raisin man shaped head,
but
going off on fucking.
The fact of the matter
Comey.
is, now before we get into our, I mean, I know we jumped in and out of opinion here, but so that's the timeline, right, of James Comey from when he became relevant to his
arguments.
firing. Now let's talk about how he got fired. How he got fired was bullshit. That was awful.
He thought they were joking.
This dude's in L.A. giving a speech to the FBI, and like, I don't know if he was at a podium or if he was just in an office, but he was
He
like,
said he was at a podium.
So-
Like, he was giving a speech, like, up on stage.
and it comes on the TV, like, A, how did Trump not know that he was in L.A.? B, like, like, what the hell? Like, first of all, classless. That's not how you fire somebody. Like,
No, it's not.
It's not how you fire
It's off
somebody.
the cuff. And there's some things I like about Donald Trump that are off the cuff that, like, I like how during the election, whenever there would be, certain things that would happen, and he would come up and say, no, that's what it is. And everyone would go, well, hold on, guy, you need to wait. And, of course, he ended up being right, like, every time. I like that off-the-cuff leadership. This is not off-the-cuff leadership. This is spontaneous mistake-making on a massive scale. Like, this is not something you're supposed to do.
And the fact
You're
of the
not supposed to
matter
fire
is,
him
he didn't
willy-nilly.
even tell his staffers until a few minutes before it happened. So
Poor Sean Spicy had to go hide in a bush. I mean, it was...
Spicer's like on his way
terrible.
out. Like Spicer's gonna be gone in like
He'll
2
go
weeks.
through like 7 or 8 of these fuckers anyway.
Here's
like,
what
I guarantee he will.
He's gonna have to, because like who the hell can spin for him? No one can spin for him.
Hucklebucker's going to come up next.
Right.
Good old Hucklebuckle Snuckle.
They've actually been talking about firings in his administration. Spicer's name has come up. Priebus's name has come up. Steve Bannon's name has come up. What I would be more interested in seeing, and this is totally a side tangent, like we like to do, if Kellyanne Conway goes, that would be fucking huge. Oh, damn it. I'll get that.
Ooh,
I'll get
F-bomb. I hate this channel
I'll
now.
get all of this in the aftermath. This isn't making it. Kellyanne Conway, that would be crazy. Like that would be nuts if she goes, because she is, I would say, a very, very vital part of at least his campaigning.
Yeah. I like Kellyanne Conway. She says some dumb shit sometimes. But I think that if you listen to her whenever she's not in front of CNN,
Are you sure?
Gonna...
Are you sure you're not looking at the wrong set of facts?
Alternative fix.
No, if you really listen to her on other things, I've listened to her on a couple podcasts and stuff. She's really smart. The problem is that the media is trying to trip everyone up, and they did the same thing with Obama's people. They would come out and say, they try to make
You
them...
think the media is playing gotcha, or because that's what it sounds like you're saying? And while that might be semi-true, he's also spitting bullshit, and that's really hard to cover for. When you have to look at a camera and lie out of your ass, knowing that everyone knows that you're lying for somebody else's stupid mistake, like that's hard. That's a bad position to be in. That's a tough spot. Like, I feel bad for his people that have to be on TV, because...
And apparently he's not happy with Sean Spicer. He wants him to go harder. It's like, dude,
he sets them...
He can't go any harder.
When you fire the director of the FBI and you don't let anybody around you know. So, and what I would think, you might... This is probably reading into it a little bit, but I don't think it's reading into it too far, that because of the leaks and because that's the type of administration that we have, one that there's not a lot of people that like this guy, including the people around him, so they're leaking things. He can't tell anybody because he doesn't know who's doing it. So he has to kind of go into these... at least in his mind,
it's Obama. Like, the people that are left over from the Obama era are the ones that they're claiming are doing the leaking.
We'll see.
It's another. It's reason like 9,000.
Here's what I would bet.
I don't like CNN. Is because all they have is leaks.
I would bet that if you replace them with all Donald Trump people, leaks still happen. Maybe not at the frequency, but leaks still happen, because the Ted Cruz Republicans are not on board with the Donald Trump Republican. They're just not.
Well, they are. He got scared. He got scared on board. The only ones who aren't are the ones that he legitimately dissed during the election. So the John McCain's, the Lindsey Grahams.
I'm not.
And even Lindsey Graham jumps onto his side more often than not.
I'm not.
John McCain is the dude who's just like, fuck everything Trump. I'm gonna propagate the Pea Party story because I don't fucking like this guy.
That's all fair, but I'm not talking about the congressman. I'm not talking about Greasy Magoo over there.
About the staff.
No, I'm not talking about this. Well, yes. I am, but what I'm talking about is like the Ted Cruz base, right? There are people in this country that like what Ted Cruz was selling that are only on board with Donald Trump because they have to be. But if they were given a choice between Ted Cruz and Donald Trump, they would take Ted Cruz.
I would believe that point a whole lot more
if those people make it into his staff, that's where your leaks will come from.
Again, I would believe that point a lot more if Donald Trump did not win evangelicals from Ted Cruz. That's who likes Ted Cruz, and he won them. They had the chance to vote for Ted Cruz, and he won more of them than Ted Cruz. So I don't buy it.
I don't care. Put me in a pool with 17 candidates. I bet I win. So
I don't know.
Like,
anyway,
half
so
of them drop out before I even have to do anything. So
we would drop out. We're the candidates that would have to drop out because no one knows us. But
if we were there, somebody would know us, and we would have money, and I would not drop out. I'd John Kasich it and be like, I don't need to be on TV. I'm
throwing snowballs and eating
pizza
with a fork.
Meet me in the park. I got some stuff to talk about. You can ask me about taxes. So
that fucking idiot.
Anyway, so the way that I don't agree with you. I like John Kasich, but we don't need to go down.
Oh boy, oh geez, oh boy.
I don't need to go down the John Kasich route.
Oh geez, oh man.
I think we can both agree that the way he was fired was not good. It was not the right way to handle it. I think
we also can agree that they have either side has ample opportunity to fire him. They have shit to fire him over.
Yes, I agree with you on that.
Handled.
And because of that, I kind of liked him being there. Because he was so...
Kind of did too.
Because he was able to not only rile up the Democrats, but also the Republicans, and everybody got equally as mad at him, that made me feel like he was doing something right. If they're both pissed at you, then you're doing your job. Now, I do agree that he made mistakes throughout the course of doing his job, and those mistakes should or could have gotten him fired, or at least made it
because he can piss both people off by just doing things wrong to both people.
Right,
so.
right. But
it still could, you know.
But the fact that he didn't, like, it would be one thing if every time he came out and made a mistake, it was on behalf of the Republicans or on behalf of the Democrats. It wasn't. It was bipartisan, and for that, I think
bipartisan fuckery.
I think at least he should have been. I personally don't think he should have been removed until after the conclusion of the Russian investigation. I also don't think that... I think the rule... I understand that he had the ability to do it, but I think that's a bad rule. I think if the Trump... If any presidential campaign... or any presidential candidate's people or staff or campaign is under investigation that could possibly lead to him being under investigation, that power should be placed in the hands of the Senate, and it should be a simple majority vote. Like, if you now, I think that in that scenario, Donald Trump would be able to recommend to the Senate that James Comey was fired, but I think the power should be taken out of the hands,
and it would have looked cleaner.
Right, I think it should be taken out of the hands of the person that is potentially under investigation.
Right. Now, here's the only and I agree with you because that's been my stance. That I personally don't mind that he had the power to do it. Because the way that the investigations work, you can just keep that investigation open forever. And so then you could just be like, well, you can't fire me. I'm investigating you.
Yeah, but that's
not
what was happening.
there could be nothing about it because they can't talk about it. No, we don't think so. But the thing about the FBI is they don't talk about any of the investigations.
Michael Flynn
I'm saying we live in a partisan time.
I agree with you.
And I don't put it by someone that they could possibly do this in the future.
But you can make all the hypotheticals you want. That's not what was going on. Michael Flynn hasn't even testified yet, and we all think that he did some shady shit. So if he hasn't even testified yet, you think they're just holding this open just to screw up Donald Trump's presidency?
No, I don't think so. But I think that rule leaves that open for someone to do that later.
I think it does too.
I mean, if anyone knows anything, I mean, there's no smoke without ducks, right?
No smoke without ducks? Yeah.
Am I wrong? I mean, that's just that's the way it works.
If it looks like a duck,
it's on fire. But,
so right. These are
the thing about the rules and whatnot, and this is the thing that I keep having an issue with the liberal mindset towards Trump. they seem really offended by everything that Trump does, and they keep bringing up impeachment. Like, you go onto anything right now on social media about Trump, and you're going to see at least 18 people write impeachment.
I think the impeachment.
You're going to need to change the rules because everything he's doing right now is legal, and if you don't like it, you're going to have to change the rules to make it illegal. Otherwise, you just don't like him.
I do think
don't vote for him.
I do think the impeachment calls are too early right now. You would, especially if we're just basing it on this. Hey, there's no evidence in the Russian investigation yet. There is, let me emphasize yet. There is no, so there's no
Russia.
There's no evidence there. I understand that. This he's allowed to do by the rules that are written. He's allowed to do this. So even if excuse me, his attempt was to impede the investigation, they would have to prove that before you could start calling for impeachment. Now, what I will say is if Democrats, because I think right now especially, and I think those people calling for impeachment right now are those super liberals that are like that's what they want. It's not, is this a realistic option right now? That's what I want, so that's what I'm shooting for, and I'm going to shoot for it until I get it in their mind.
I'm going to just get it any way that I can.
Right. I think that those calls are a little bit too early. Could I see the actions of if there was an impeachment, do I think that the last week's events will play into it? Yeah, I do, but I think it's way too early to say that we're looking at impeachment now. If those same wishful dreamers and in Congress as well want to be able to impeach Donald Trump, get him under oath. That's what you have to do. You want to get him under oath, then you will build a way for him to impeach himself, because that dude cannot not lie. So
double negative.
So if Democrats in Congress are really serious about trying to impeach him, that's what they need to do. But what I would do if I was them, if I was strategizing for the Democratic Party, I would call him to testify now, because he lies about everything. So he'll lie about his...
And even if he's lying about dumb... Yeah, he doesn't lie about everything, but he lies about dumb shit. And the problem about lying about dumb shit is if you're under oath, that dumb shit isn't dumb anymore.
Right.
You saw that with Clinton.
Right.
No one gave a shit he was getting blowjibbers in the White House. He was running the economy and everything was great. I mean, that takes some skill.
But he lied.
But he lied, and you can't do that.
You can't do that. So what I'm saying now...
You can. Nothing really happened. But
if I was strategizing for the Democrats, get him to testify as soon as you can. And then, if you win one House of Congress in 2018, there's your priority. So, I mean, that's because Republicans aren't going to do it. So, unless he does something so unbelievably over the top that they all have to step away from him for their own careers,
they already have 800 times over.
No. They're not.
I'm not buying this whole, Republicans will never turn on Trump. Did you watch the election? Because they turned on him every chance they could.
Right.
It was like it was politically unacceptable to be on Trump's side.
Right, but
like,
so
you had
far,
to be a maverick to be doing that.
You can cite the campaign, and that's fine. They, like we, didn't believe that he was going to be the president. Since then, they have gotten in line. I can show you 1,000 Republicans, every Republican in Congress, talking about how great it is that Comey got fired last week.
Well, Comey.
And I can show you 1 million Democrats who are screaming that it shouldn't have happened, and that's because
you're not going to convince me that John McCain is on his side. He's not.
No, he's not. But you can get people like Rand Paul off of his side. We
already saw the Heritage Foundation or the Freedom Caucus stand up to him and stop him from getting his shitty bill that they got later.
Right. So what I'm saying is if
Jeb, very high energy.
Roy Blunt, I don't know why Jeb's name came to my head at all.
Jeb, he's like I guess they're both low energy.
If Roy Blunt fears that he could lose his seat over being too closely associated with Donald Trump, he will go and tell his people that he is against Donald Trump and that we should not support this, and that can be damaging.
Donald Trump will be on his way out the door by the time that dude comes up for re-election.
Right, and
he won
Roy Blunt
when
is
Trump won, like for 6 years.
Roy Blunt's a career politician, by the way, who won't associate himself with anything, and that's why he is still where he is. So
his family associates themselves with what do you call it? Financial ties to basically everyone. They're all fucking lobbyists.
Yeah, they're lobbyists. So,
and he still won. I don't get it.
So anyway, I think.
Anyway, we're running long here, so
yeah,
we'll wrap it up.
And I think that if we like to wrap up James Comey, I mean, I think that we can both definitely admit that like there were reasons to fire James Comey. The way that it went down was shitty, and it was shitty for everybody involved with the Trump administration, who had to play cleanup for the 9 million times they changed their story as to why it happened, and just the timing looks bad. So, and I think we can both.
It doesn't look good.
I think that we can both agree too that like if you fire somebody, maybe have a little bit more taste when you do it. Don't.
Yeah,
like,
don't do that. Send
you
shit off the cuff.
CNN, who likes to make everything a goddamn special report or
breaking
news. Everything's breaking news.
There's still no news.
Well, first of all, they had a helicopter over the airport, which I feel like violates some laws, showing James Comey leaving L.A., getting on his plane to come back to D.C. But what was interesting about the whole thing was that, like, at that time, the panel was like, is he allowed to go to his office and clean out his desk? Is he even allowed to fly the plane or fly on the FBI plane? Does he have to fly commercial? Does he have to get a cab? How will he ever get home? I hope he has a change of clothes. Like, shut up. That's not a news story. And so, like, you know,
right.
So we'll.
I wonder what he's feeling though.
I'm sure.
Like,
sure.
Is he crying?
I'm sure sometime in the next couple weeks, a month, however long it takes, we'll be back on the James Comey topic because he will come out and say something.
He'll come out.
And
yeah, he'll say something, so.
we'll have that to talk about. But for now, I think that's James Comey in a nutshell.
Yep, think so.